This is a Thompson Cast. I am Mel Thompson. You know, sometimes when things don't happen, they are probably the best things that can happen when it comes to political risk. It appears now that Japan's main opposition party has backed the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe as its new leader. And this essentially is giving Mr. Abe an opportunity, and one that is going to give great pause to Beijing and Seoul, who are now locked in a territorial dispute with Japan. And you need to look at the overall picture here. Mr. Abe lost in 2009. Essentially, his party lost in 2009 after well over 50 years of being in power. And the fact that he is now back in power is going to change the dynamics slightly of what's going to happen in the China-Japan dispute over these islands that have been in the news quite often. And when I say something that is not going to happen, it's the best thing that could happen, I'm specifically referring to the prospect of a outright shooting war between Japan and China. I think Abe's ascension back into power lowers the prospect of that, because I think he actually would not shy away from it and go through with it. And I believe the Chinese know this. I believe that South Koreans know this. There have been meetings in the past day or so between high-level officials in Japan and China that have tried to quell the rising tensions between the two countries. I would attribute some of this to the fact that the Japanese have picked a person who is known as a security hawk, if you will. He's not somebody who's going to shy away from a fight. And no matter the risks involved, and no matter the insane idea of getting into a shooting war with China, some people have a reputation that lowers the risk of something like this happening just by getting back into power or having some degree of power within the government. I believe that now that there's a lot of room for discussion. I believe this is going to slowly start to go back into the background of issues that have absolutely no real bearing on the greater economic picture of China, Japan, South Korea, Asia in general, and the United States in the context of a Pacific nation. I think that you have a great opportunity here to learn from this. And what the lesson is that talk is much better than getting into a situation where one false move, one person gets shot, one boat fires a cannon, one boat gets rammed by the wrong party, and then you have an incident that is going to require the saving of face. And the saving of face could only mean an outright shooting war. I think that the prospect of having Abe as the next prime minister in Japan, and his bravado, for lack of a better way to put it, when it comes to security and things of that nature, have made the Chinese realize that this is good politics for them internally, doing what they've been doing. But this fellow raised the prospect of it actually happening, and this we cannot let happen. So my message is very clear. Overall, sometimes the things that happen and the things that don't happen, both can have a overall impact on the political risks of a particular situation. In this case, the things that do not happen are the best things that could happen. And the things that will not happen now, in my opinion, is that there's going to be a shooting war between China and Japan. Now, one more thing about this. I want to just point out to you that the new president of the LDP, uh, which is the Liberal Democratic Party, which was in power in Japan for over 50 years, um, is a person that knows a little bit about politics. And the biggest business lobby in Japan, is very, very fond of the new leadership in the LDP. They like the idea of Abe becoming prime minister again. And that alone is a completely different set of political risks for foreign direct investors. The fact that the government is changing is in and of itself a political risk. The fact that the business lobby in Japan likes this fellow and his past record would also lead me to believe there may be some issues as far as market entry and trade issues with the United States. So there are some political risks that are going to be raised by this change in government. However, the biggest political risk would have been a war that would have sucked a bunch of other countries into it over these islands. I think that now is diminished by this fellow's um, rise back to power. So I would actually take the political risk of policy changes as opposed to a conflict change any day of the week. This has been the Thompson Cast. I am Mel Thompson.